everyone. Welcome to In the Corner, the place where every cricketer wants to be. I'm your host, Callum Dunk, and thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the podcast. What a win it was for Australia in Barbados. Waking up after the first day's play, I was very concerned seeing that we were bowled out for 180 odd, but obviously felt a little bit easier that we were able to restrict the West Indies to 457 after the first day's play. And there were some really concerning signs for me on the first day with the way that Australia batted. We're very lucky that we have such a great bowling attack, because an inexperienced bowling attack, probably we would have lost this game due to the fact that, you know, our top order hasn't been very consistent. There's been a lot of chopping and changing over the last little bit of time, not finding a proper replacement for David Warner, some issues that have accumulated over time. So they got out of jail here. Once again, fast bowlers, Cummins, Stark, Hazlewood, tremendous during this test match. Some really good bowling from the West Indies as well. So we'll certainly talk about all the players who did well. We'll talk about some umpiring decisions and some reactions to umpiring decisions as well, because they were in important moments in the game that, went in Australia's favour. And there's certainly been some comments from the West Indies about, I suppose, the inconsistency of some of the decisions. So let's go back to the first day. The West Indies, particularly Shamar Joseph and Jayden Seales, were spectacular with the ball. I predicted Jayden Seales would be my top leading wicket taker for the West Indies, and he certainly delivered on those predictions. So thanks to Jayden. Five wickets in the first innings, and he bowled with good pace, aggression, was able to swing the ball. Shamar Joseph, this is the most dangerous he's looked since he was here at the Gabba, where he took his famous 7 for 68 to bowl the Australians out at the Gabba. So it was a return to form. I thought he was extremely poor when they went to England last year, and I think there was a bit of expectation on him, but it's good to see that, playing against Australia, raises his game up a level. And I think that having those competitive beasts in your side will be truly important for West Indies cricket going forward. There's been a lot of talk about Sam Konstas and whether he's the right person to open. And we've only had a very small sample size. Yes, he is 19. He is not a finished product. He does have some technical flaws in his game, but they picked him for a reason when it came to Melbourne, because they wanted someone a little bit more aggressive at the top of the order. And I still think it was very, very tough on Nathan McSweeney, but, he's shown us what he can do. No player is perfect at 19 years old. And look, Sam didn't have a great test match, and there's no hiding in international cricket, but he's going to get the rest of the series. He's probably the first opener that gets picked for the Ashes. To be honest, I think there's actually more pressure on Usman Khawaja, and I've been quite critical of Khawaja. As much as I've loved his resurgence into the test side over the last 4 years, since he famously came in at Sydney and scored those twin hundreds when Travis Head had COVID. Uzi hasn't really done much wrong. He's had a few lean trots here and there, but when you get dropped 3 times on the first day, you make a very scratchy 47, you look jumpy against the quicks. I've been critical of Khawaja after the World Test Championship final. And I've been critical of Khawaja when Australia went to play New Zealand. He looked all at sea against Matt Henry. Once again, he looked all at sea against Bumrah, but every batter looked at sea against Jasprit Bumrah. So, yeah, I think the next 2 test matches will determine whether Usman Khawaja is going to play in the Ashes. I think the selectors have been pretty stubborn in saying they want to take him, and Uzi has talked about playing past the Ashes, but I don't think that's realistic. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I think there's more pressure on Usman, the 38-year-old, compared to letting the 19-year-old who needs time to settle in the side. And it's not easy being a young player coming in with an experienced team, but the kid needs time. Some really positive performances for Australia in this game. Travis Head made 59 in the first innings and 61 in the second. And, he was essentially the difference in the game. And just shows how vital he is for Australia. When Australia's in trouble, he generally bats at his best. Seen that in the World Test Championship final. Saw it in numerous knocks in the home Ashes series of 21-22. The innings at Hobart comes to mind during that Ashes series. So he has shown he's got a proven track record of batting well when Australia is under pressure. His counter-attacking nature. The key thing he was the Windies were able to, give him some siders early on his innings, and he was able to hit through the covers really well. The South Africans were extremely tight when they bowled to him at Lords, so didn't give him any width to throw his hands out through the offside. So, if Travis Head had made a couple of quick 540s in the World Test Championship final, it might have been a different story for Australia. You never know. Beau Webster continues to impress. I thought his 63 in the second innings looked really classy. A lot of pressure on at the time. Australia, about 4 for 100 odd on the end of the second day. And the way that he was able to come in, he looks really good through the offside. I certainly think he's got a couple, at least 2 or 3 years playing some good solid Test cricket for Australia. 31 years old. We'll have to see whether the balance of the side changes, whether they continue to pick him. Obviously, Cameron Green's not bowling at the moment, so Webster's bowling is quite important. With being able to make sure that the three key seamers are able to play most games. I really like what he was able to do. I thought he bowled well in this game. He took 2 wickets in the West Indies first innings to really restrict them. It was a great effort from Australia to restrict them to 190. Probably could have been, the tail did wag a little bit towards the end, but if you said you made 180 odd in the first innings and the other team got bowled out for 190, you'd be pretty happy with that, considering that the wicket was a little bit up and down. And Alex Carey, great to see him amongst the runs, South Australians. So we always like it on the podcast when Alex is scoring runs. And I thought he had a moment with the gloves, dropped a catch that he'd probably prefer to forget about, but that happens. That's cricket, and he's an important part of this Australian side. And Alex Carey in form heading into the Ashes is going to be really important, with England having a reasonably strong bowling attack. So, and the top order was knocked over pretty cheaply in both innings by the West Indies seamers. So his counter-attacking role at number 7 and the ability to bat with the tail, I think, was extremely important. If we talk about the Australian bowlers, Josh Hazlewood on the third day was sensational. He doesn't get a lot of big bags of wickets. He consistently gets those 1s and 2s and 3s, but he was able to have a day out taking 5 wickets. And I think, Josh Hazlewood has been the most consistent bowler in the Australian side for probably the last 2 years. It's obviously a shame that his body continues to let him down at points. If he was able to play more consistently, he'd certainly be over that 300 wicket mark. And I'm not sure how much longer he's going to have in Test cricket, but we certainly need to appreciate him while he's still around. He plays such an important role for this team. And obviously Stark, can take those really big bags of wickets, and Cummins is very consistent, like Hazlewood, takes lots of, 1s and 2s and 3s. But Hazlewood is just a consistent glue that sort of keeps this nice bowling attack together. And when he's not fit, Scott Boland's a very handy replacement and plays a very similar role. So if Hazlewood's able to play 3 back-to-back Test matches, that would be fantastic for Australia. We'll have to see what the conditions are for the next two games. I would highly suspect he would be playing the third Test match due to that being a pink ball game, and he has a great record with the pink ball. So if he was going to miss one, I think it would be this next one in Granada. Um, the two umpiring sort of decisions, third umpire Adrian Holdstock has sort of come under a little bit of fire from the West Indies management, and I think that's fair enough. The catch of Alex Carey, it looked fantastic live, and it looked like it comfortably went in, but obviously on the replay and slowing it down, it did look like some part of it had touched the ground, and I know sometimes it's really hard to override decisions and. Um, but it looked the wrong call, and the one with Shea Hope, and Shea Hope was batting nicely. He was on about 48, and then the one in the first innings of the game where the one for the West Indies was given not out when it looked like it looked pretty much similar. Yeah, I thought it was a little bit interesting. Darren Sammy was pretty firm with some comments after the game, and then was fined 15% of his match fee by the ICC. I don't like the idea of publicly shaming officials. I think it's hard enough to get people involved with umpiring, but at the same time, it is international standard. You're playing for your country. Obviously, there's a lot of care, a lot of passion. It was a tight contest, so I do understand Sammy's frustration, but maybe those should have been expressed in private rather than through the media. And um, we don't want the technology to be at a point where it's really hard to have conclusive evidence to give the right decision. I think the game of cricket is obviously better for the use of technology, and we've seen DRS and the idea of being able to get rid of the howler. That's what the system was brought in for. But with some of these fielding ones, look, there's one 90% of the time that it's fine, but there's times where there's missing some little frames in between that could be the difference between giving a decision out or not out. So I think the ICC needs to continue to get the technology better, and get the frame rates on the cameras to the highest quality standard. And hopefully we don't see these issues going forward. If we look ahead to the second test match, which begins on Friday, um, the talk is Steve Smith is going to return. Apparently, he's been doing some batting in New York. Smithy seems to be spending a lot of time in New York at the moment. But yeah, I fully expect him to come back into the side, and then Josh Inglis would make way, who didn't unfortunately impress in this game. Neither did Cameron Green. So I think Cameron Green, the most logical thing for me would be to put Steve Smith at 3 and then Cameron Green at 4. But I understand why they don't want to do that, and they want to keep Steve Smith at number 4. I do see the potential with Cameron Green at number 3. But he's just looking very nervous and wants to push at the ball a lot, which can be dangerous if you're facing the new ball. And against the likes of Shamar Joseph and Jayden Seals, who were able to seriously impress with the new ball in both innings of this game. The pitch in Granada tends to turn a little bit. So if there was an opportunity for Australia to play two spinners, I think Matt Kuhneman would do a fantastic job. I thought he bowled fantastically in Sri Lanka and in India. So um, obviously, he gets a little bit extra bounce. Nathan Lyon wasn't really needed in this game at Barbados, so I would understand the hesitancy to play two spinners. So we'll have to see what happens on Friday, and what sort of deck that we're given. There might be, as we've said earlier, there's a chance that Hazlewood might be given a rest and Scott Boland given an opportunity to play. But I think there's been enough of a break between the test matches that Hazlewood should be able to play. I wouldn't envisage any changes from the West Indies. I thought their bowling attack was superb. The only thing that I'd recommend for the West Indies is to be able to hold your catches. There were 7 catches for the West Indies dropped in 7 drop catches for the West Indies in this game, which is pretty disappointing and subpar to international cricket standards. Australia weren't great in the field either. They dropped 4. So, look, that's cricket sometimes. I'm not sure whether something at the ground had something to do with the amount of drop catches, but They say catches win matches, and if the West Indies were able to hold a few more of their chances, they might have been able to generate themselves a different result. So we'll have to hope that both sides are able to do a better effort at Grenada. So that's a quick review of the first Test match between Australia and the West Indies from Barbados. Make sure that you tune into the channel for the India and England Test series, and obviously the second Test match review of Australia and the West Indies when that Test match concludes in Grenada. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Cheers.